Move this old woman before I count 3. Sani Garba's voice cracked across the compound as the bulldozer roared behind him. Mama Zainab stood at the gate, clutching one small bag of medicine, her faded yellow wrapper dragging in the dust. "This house is no longer yours," Sani shouted, waving a deed before the neighbors. "You signed it. Stop behaving like a mad woman and leave." Zainab's lips trembled. Then the bulldozer blade dropped. "Stop that machine!" Every head turned. Fatima stepped from a taxi in a burnt orange dress, followed by a court officer and a lawyer in a bright cobalt suit. She walked straight to Sani. No shouting, no begging. She simply raised a certified hospital record. "Uncle," she said, dangerously calm, "how did my mother sign this deed 9 days after a stroke paralyzed her writing hand?" The compound went silent. Do not miss what happened next, because the person who exposed the forgery was already standing in that crowd. Tell us your city and local time in the comments, and subscribe. This family secret is about to tear Ilorin apart. 7 weeks earlier, Fatima Garba arrived at Ilorin International Airport with one navy suitcase, one brown handbag, and a fear she had refused to name throughout the flight from London. It was Monday, the 10th of March, 2025. The time on her phone was 1:17 in the afternoon. The heat struck her first. It pressed against her face the moment the glass doors opened, thick and familiar, carrying dust, petrol fumes, and the distant smell of roasted groundnuts. For 6 years she had lived in Leeds, where mornings could remain grey until noon and rain tapped windows like a patient visitor. Yet, one breath of Kwara air brought back everything she had buried under work shifts and winter coats. Her mother's laughter, her father's old radio, the sound of traders calling from Oja Oba Market. Fatima stood near the pickup lane and called her uncle again. The phone rang 9 times. No answer. She called Blessing. Switched off. Then she called Marcus. It rang once before he rejected it. Fatima stared at the screen. "Hope no problem?" the taxi driver asked as he lifted her suitcase into the boot. "I am managing," she replied. But she was not managing. For 23 days, she had not spoken to her mother alone. Every call passed through Sani or Blessing. Sometimes she heard Zainab breathing in the background. Sometimes a voice said, "Fatima, my daughter, I am fine," before the line went dead. The last call had lasted 38 seconds. Fatima had asked, "Mummy, what did you eat this morning?" There had been a pause. Then Blessing's voice had entered sharply. "She has eaten. Must we bring the plate for you to inspect from England?" The line ended. That same evening, Fatima booked her ticket. She told nobody. The taxi left the airport road and moved into the afternoon traffic. Fatima watched tricycles weave between cars. Roadside sellers balanced oranges and sachet water on trays. A mosque minaret rose above rusted roofs, and somewhere beyond a row of shops, a church loudspeaker carried the tail end of a prayer. She had imagined this return many times. Her mother would be sitting on the veranda in a clean blue wrapper. She would pretend not to cry, then hold Fatima so tightly that both of them would laugh. Fatima had brought a soft blood pressure monitor, 3 dresses, diabetic socks, and a framed photograph taken at the care home in Leeds, where she worked as a senior support coordinator. She had also brought guilt. It weighed more than the suitcase. 6 years earlier, Fatima had left Nigeria with a temporary care work visa and £612 in savings. She took night shifts, double shifts, Christmas shifts. She washed strangers, fed them, changed dressings, and sat beside elderly people who feared dying alone. Each month she sent money home. At first, it was 180,000, then 240,000. When her mother's blood sugar became unstable, Fatima increased it. When Sani said the roof needed repair, she sent more. When Blessing claimed Zainab needed private physiotherapy after a stroke, Fatima borrowed £1,700 from a colleague and paid it back over 11 months. The total over 6 years was £1,430,500. Fatima knew the figure because she had calculated it at 2:43 that morning while waiting at Heathrow. 18,437,500 naira. Enough for medication. Enough for comfort. Enough, she had believed, to keep her mother safe. The taxi turned into Adewale Estate at 2:06 p.m. Fatima leaned forward. The compound wall was higher than she remembered. Fresh cream paint covered the old cracks. A black metal gate had replaced the wooden one her father built. Above it, silver letters read Garber Family Court. The taxi horn sounded twice. A young gateman opened the smaller side gate. Fatima did not know him. He looked at her, then at the taxi, with the careful suspicion of someone trained to keep poor strangers outside. "Yes?" he asked. "I live here," he frowned. "Who are you looking for?" Fatima almost laughed. "My mother, Mama Zainab Garber." The man's eyes shifted toward the house. Before he could answer, the main door opened. Blessing stepped out, wearing an emerald green kaftan with gold embroidery. Her head tie was high. Her slippers shone. She stopped so suddenly that the handbag on her arm swung forward. "Fatima?" "Good afternoon, Auntie." Blessing did not embrace her. She looked first at the suitcase, then over Fatima's shoulder, as though expecting an immigration officer to follow. "You did not tell anybody you were coming." "I wanted to surprise Mummy." Blessing's lips tightened. "Surprise?" she said. "At your age, you are still doing surprise like small girl?" The gate opened wider. The taxi drove into the compound. Fatima stepped out and saw the changes. A dark grey SUV stood beneath a new carport. 2 shops had been built along the right wall, both with metal shutters. A large generator sat on a concrete platform. The old mango tree was gone. So was her mother's small vegetable patch. The main house had been tiled, new windows, new veranda railings, new furniture visible through the open door. Money had passed through this place. Plenty money. "Where is Uncle Sani?" Fatima asked. "At a meeting. And Marcus?" "At work." Fatima looked toward the house. "Where is Mummy?" Blessing adjusted her sleeve. "She is resting? Inside?" "No, she went to stay with one of our relations for some days." "Which relation?" Blessing's eyes hardened. "Fatima, you just came from journey. Enter first. Drink water. You are squeezing your face as if somebody died." Fatima's stomach turned. "Which relation?" she repeated. Blessing raised her voice. "Must I answer you at the gate like house girl? Enter." Fatima left the suitcase beside the taxi and walked past her. The sitting room was cold from 2 air conditioners. A cream sofa occupied the wall where her father's bookshelf used to stand. A glass center table held artificial flowers and a remote control tray. On the far side, a framed studio portrait showed Sani, Blessing, and Marcus dressed in matching blue clothes. Her mother was not in the photograph. Fatima moved down the corridor. "Where are you going?" Blessing demanded. "To my mother's room. That room is no longer there." Fatima stopped. The door had been widened. Her mother's room and the adjoining store had been joined into a second lounge. A television covered one wall. A wine-colored recliner sat where Zainab's bed had once stood. Fatima walked inside slowly. She saw no medicine box, no walking stick, no framed photograph of her father, not even the small prayer mat her mother used every dawn. She turned. "Where is she?" Blessing folded her arms. "I told you. She went to a rehabilitation place." "You said she was with a relation." "It is a relative who knows somebody at the place." "Name the place." "Why are you interrogating me?" "Because she is my mother." "And what have you been doing as her daughter?" Blessing snapped. You ran to Oyinbo land. We remained here carrying the burden. Now you enter with one suitcase and begin to behave like government inspector. Fatima felt the words land. They were designed to injure the place already hurting. She refused to show it. I spoke to Mummy 3 weeks ago. She said she was in this house. She was confused. What do you mean? After the stroke, sometimes she says things that are not correct. Fatima moved closer. Is she confused, or are you hiding her? Blessing laughed once, without humor. God forbid. Hiding an old woman? For what? The front door opened. Marcus entered in a grey shirt and black trousers. At 27, he had his father's height but not his father's hard face. He froze when he saw Fatima. Kazan, he said. Fatima watched him carefully. You rejected my call. My phone was hanging. Where is my mother? Marcus glanced at Blessing. It was only 1 second. That 1 second told Fatima everything. Marcus. He lowered his eyes. Auntie Zainab is being looked after. Where? I am not sure of the address. You live in this house. You are not sure where your father's brother's widow is staying. Blessing cut in. Enough. Marcus, go and wash your hands. He did not move. Fatima stepped closer to him. Look at me. He looked. There was fear in his eyes, not confusion, fear. Fatima's voice dropped. Is she alive? Marcus's mouth opened. Blessing slapped that center table with her palm. What kind of cursed question is that? The artificial flowers trembled. Marcus flinched. Then a car horn sounded outside. Blessing turned toward the door, and Fatima used the moment to pull out her phone. She typed one message to Marcus. Send me her lotion. His phone vibrated in his pocket. He did not touch it. Fatima collected her suitcase and left the compound before Sani returned. Blessing followed her to the gate, shouting that she was disrespectful, ungrateful, and infected with foreign pride. Neighbors looked through curtains. The gateman pretended to sweep the same patch of concrete. Fatima did not answer. She checked into a small guest house on Unity Road at 3:21 p.m., room 17. 1 bed, 1 plastic chair, 1 humming air conditioner. She locked the door, placed her suitcase beside the wall, and called every relative whose number she still had. The first said Zainab was in Offa. The second said she was in a private clinic near Tanke. The third claimed she had traveled to stay with an old market friend. None could give an address. At 5:48 p.m., Fatima sat on the edge of the bed with her phone in both hands. A message entered. It was from Marcus. Only 7 words. Ask the woman, what you sells, pap near home. The message disappeared less than a minute later. Marcus had deleted it. But Fatima had already taken a screenshot. At 6:14 p.m., she was back in Adderwall Estate. She did not enter the compound. She walked past it toward the junction where an elderly woman sold pap, akara, and boiled yam beneath a blue umbrella. The woman recognized Fatima after studying her face. Ah, she whispered, Zainab's daughter from abroad. My sister, Fatima said, trying to keep her voice steady. Please tell me where my mother is. The woman's hand stopped above a bowl of batter. She looked toward the Garber compound. Then she lowered her voice. They said we should mind our business. I am begging you. The woman's eyes filled with discomfort. Your mother is not far. Fatima's knees weakened. Where? Behind the old row of shops near Oloji Road. There is one store at the back. They moved her there after the rain damaged part of the roof. A store? The woman looked away. Your mother begged me not to call you. She said your uncle would stop her medicine completely if she caused trouble. Fatima could not breathe properly. The woman reached across the table and held her wrist. My daughter, go with somebody. Do not go alone. Fatima did not wait. She called a ride. The driver arrived in 11 minutes. By 6:43 p.m., the sky above Ilorin had turned the color of smoke. The row of shops stood behind a mechanic workshop. one 4 kilometers from the family house. 5 metal shutters faced the road. Behind them ran a narrow passage filled with broken crates, empty paint buckets, and weeds. Fatima followed the sound of coughing. At the end of the passage was a wooden door secured with a bent latch. She pushed it open. The room smelled of damp cement, urine, and expired medicine. A weak bulb hung from a wire. Rain stains spread across the ceiling. There was no proper toilet, only a covered bucket in one corner. On a thin mattress lay Mama Zainab. Her yellow blouse had faded almost white at the shoulders. One foot was wrapped in a dirty cloth. Beside her sat a plastic cup, 2 empty sachets of water, and a medicine pack that had expired 4 months earlier. For several seconds, Fatima could not move. Her mother turned her head. Their eyes met. Zainab's lips parted. Fatima. The name came out like a prayer. Fatima dropped to her knees. Mummy. She touched Mother's face. It was hot, too hot. Zainab tried to sit up but cried out. Fatima held her shoulders and felt how little flesh remained beneath the blouse. Mummy, what happened? Zainab began to weep. Not loudly, not dramatically. The tears simply rolled into her ears as she lay there, too weak to wipe them. Fatima looked around again and saw a blue and white bedsheet spread beneath the mattress. She knew that sheet. She had bought it in Leeds and sent it home the previous year. Blessing had sent her a photograph of it, neatly spread in a bright bedroom. Mummy loves it, the message had said. Now it was covering bare concrete in a storehouse. Something inside Fatima became very still. The kind of stillness that comes before a person stops begging for explanations. She took out her phone. She photographed the room, the medicine, the wound, the bucket, the date on the expired packet. Then she called an ambulance. Zainab gripped her wrist with her left hand. Do not fight them, she whispered. Your uncle said the money is family money. He said if I make trouble, you will lose everything you worked for. Fatima bent until her forehead touched her mother's hand. Mummy, listen to me. Her voice shook once, then it hardened. I did not come home to fight blindly. She lifted her head. I came home to see the truth. Outside, a siren began to rise through the evening traffic, and for the first time in 6 years, the truth was no longer hidden behind a phone call. The ambulance arrived at 7:02 p.m. 2 paramedics lifted Zainab carefully onto a stretcher. Fatima climbed into the back and held her mother's left hand while the vehicle moved through Ilorin traffic. The siren cut through the night. Zainab's eyes opened and closed. Each time they opened, she searched for Fatima's face. I am here, Fatima kept saying. I am not going anywhere. At the emergency unit, the nurses moved quickly. Blood was taken. A glucose test was done. The dirty cloth around Zainab's foot was removed, revealing an infected wound near her heel. Her blood pressure was 186/112. Her blood sugar reading was dangerously high. Fatima stood beside the treatment bed until a nurse asked her to wait outside. The corridor smelled of antiseptic and boiled rice from a staff room. A television mounted high on the wall showed a football match with the sound muted. Families sat on plastic chairs, some praying, some arguing with billing clerks, some staring at doors that refused to open quickly enough. Fatima called Sani at 7:41 p.m. This time, he answered. Where are you? He demanded. At the hospital with Mummy. There was silence. Then he said, Who gave you permission to carry her? Fatima closed her eyes. Permission? Yes, you entered a place we arranged for her and carried her away like thief. That place had no toilet. She refused to use the one outside. Her medicine expired 4 months ago. She is stubborn with medicine. Her foot is infected. We were treating it traditionally. Fatima gripped the phone so tightly that her knuckles hurt. Uncle, come to the hospital. I have a meeting. Come and explain the treatment you have been giving her with the money I sent." His voice changed. The false concern disappeared. "Be careful how you speak to me," he said. "You may have stayed in England, but you are still a child in this family." The line went dead. Fatima did not call back. At 9:18 p.m., a doctor in a navy head covering entered the waiting area and called her name. "I am Dr. Grace Danjuma," she said. "Are you Mama Zainab's daughter?" "Yes, Ma. Come with me." They sat in a small consultation room. Dr. Grace placed a file on the desk and spoke without drama, which made every word heavier. Zainab was dehydrated. Her diabetes had been poorly managed for months. The wound on her foot required aggressive treatment to prevent deeper infection. She was underweight. Her blood tests suggested she had not been eating enough protein. The old stroke had left weakness on her right side, and the lack of physiotherapy had made it worse. "Can she recover?" Fatima asked. "She can improve," Dr. Grace replied. "But we need to stabilize her first. She will remain here for observation." Fatima nodded. Then the doctor leaned forward. "My sister, I must ask a difficult question. Who has been caring for her?" Fatima looked down. "My uncle and his wife. Does she live with them?" "She was supposed to. Fatima opened her phone and showed the photographs. Dr. Grace viewed them one after another. Her face did not change, but she inhaled slowly through her nose. "Keep these originals," she said. "Do not edit them. Do not send them around carelessly. Back them up." "Why?" "Because what you are describing may go beyond family misunderstanding. It may involve neglect and financial abuse." The phrase struck Fatima. Financial abuse. Until that moment, she had thought only of betrayal. The doctor gave the behavior a name. "When an older person is isolated," Dr. Grace continued, "when one person controls their phone, money, medicine, and documents, it creates danger. Family members often say they are protecting the person. Sometimes they are protecting themselves." Fatima swallowed. "I sent money every month." "I believe you, but money sent is not always care received." That sentence followed Fatima into the ward. Zainab was awake when she entered. An intravenous line ran into her left hand. Her face looked smaller against the white pillow. Fatima sat beside her. "Mummy, I need you to tell me everything." Zainab turned her eyes toward the window. "If I talk, there will be trouble." "There is already trouble. They will say I am destroying the family." "Did the family not destroy your room?" Zainab's eyes filled. Fatima lowered her voice. "I am not asking so I can fight in the street. I am asking because I need facts." Her mother remained silent for a long time. Then she began. After the stroke in April 2023, Sani took control of everything. He said Zainab should not worry herself with bank matters. He collected her phone whenever Fatima called and stood beside the bed while she spoke. If Zainab complained, he reminded her that Fatima was abroad and could not come quickly. At first, she remained in her room. Then Blessing said the room was too close to the kitchen and not good for recovery. They moved her to the store at the back of the compound. 3 months later, they turned her room into a lounge. When Zainab questioned the construction of the shops, Sani said Fatima had approved it. Fatima had approved nothing. When she asked about rent, Blessing told her the shops were not yet profitable. When she asked for money to buy medicines, she said the family account was empty. Then, in November 2024, they moved her from the compound to the storehouse near Oloje Road. Sani claimed neighbors were tired of her coughing and that the store would be quieter. "What about the rehabilitation center?" Fatima asked. Zainab looked confused. "Which center?" Fatima felt cold. "All the money I sent for physiotherapy." Her mother's left fingers tightened around the bedsheet. No physiotherapist came after the first 2 weeks. Fatima turned away. On the wall, a clock ticked past 10 p.m. She thought of every extra shift, every Christmas morning spent feeding strangers while imagining her mother receiving proper care. Every time Sanis had sent a voice note saying, "Do not worry, my daughter. We are carrying her on our head." He had not carried Zainab on his head. He had carried Fatima's money into his own life. "Did you sign any paper for Uncle Sani?" Fatima asked. Zainab frowned. After the stroke, he brought forms. He said one was for health insurance. My right hand was not working. Blessing pressed my left thumb on one page. "Did you read it?" "They did not allow me." "Did you transfer the land to him?" Zainab turned sharply despite the pain. "God forbid." Her voice was weak, but the answer was strong. "That land belonged to your father and me. Why would I give it away?" Fatima sat back. The fear she had carried from Leeds changed shape. It became purpose. The next morning, Tuesday the 11th of March, Fatima went to the hospital billing office at 8:07 a.m. She paid the first deposit directly. She requested every receipt in duplicate. She created a folder on her phone and another in cloud storage. She emailed copies to herself. At 9:26 a.m., she called her bank in the United Kingdom and requested a complete record of transfers made to Sani's Nigerian account from January 2019 to February 2025. The clerk said it could take up to 10 working days. Fatima requested an urgent digital copy. Then she went to a business center across the road and printed the receipts she already had. There were 73 transfers. She arranged them by date. At 11:43 am, she returned to the family house. Sani was waiting in the sitting room. He wore a red ruby kaftan and a dark green cap. Blessing sat beside him in emerald fabric. Marcus stood near the window, his grey shirt buttoned to the neck despite the heat. Nobody offered Fatima a seat. Sani pointed at her with a walking stick he did not need. "You embarrassed this family yesterday." Fatima placed a brown envelope on the glass table. "Mummy is in hospital. You carried her without consulting us. She needed treatment. We were treating her. With expired medicine?" Blessing hissed. "Do not come here and accuse me. Your mother refuses food. She throws medicine away. She is difficult." Fatima looked at her. "Then show me the fresh medicine you bought." Blessing's mouth closed. Fatima opened the envelope and removed a sheet. "On the 3rd of February, I sent 275,000 for insulin, wound care, and laboratory tests. Show me the receipts." Sani leaned back. "We do not keep every piece of paper." "On the 29th of December, I sent 410,000 for physiotherapy and a new mattress. Show me one receipt." The money entered family expenses. "On the 14th of October, I sent 190,000 for her eye examination." "Which clinic did she attend?" Sani slapped his palm against the arm of the chair. "Enough," the word echoed. Fatima did not flinch. She removed another page. "On the 7th of May, I sent Win 680,000 because you said Mummy was admitted for 4 days. Which hospital?" Sani's eyes shifted. Blessing stood. "You think because you wear foreign perfume you can enter here and audit us? Do you know what it costs to run a house? Diesel, food, security, repairs. Your money was not enough for all the burden. My money was not sent to run your house. You are selfish," Blessing snapped. "Your mother lived under our roof. She was living in a storehouse. We gave her a place." Fatima's voice became quiet. "A place without a toilet is not care." Sani rose slowly. He was a tall man, still broad in the shoulders, and he had spent years using his size and position to silence people before they could finish speaking. "You have forgotten your level," he said. "You wash old people in England, and now you think you are a doctor, lawyer, and judge. Have you ever managed a Nigerian household with your small salary? You send money and begin to behave as if you bought all of us. Fatima looked around the room, the imported sofa, the television, the air conditioners, the new tiles, the SUV key hanging from Sani's finger. I did not buy all of you, she said. But it appears I bought many things in this house. Marcus covered his mouth. Blessing gasped. Sani's face darkened. You are mad. Show me one receipt. I will not be questioned in my own house. This was my mother's house before it became your own. The room froze. A spoon slipped from a tray in the dining area and struck the tiled floor. Nobody moved to pick it up. Sani walked to a cabinet, opened it, and removed a file. He pulled out a photocopied document and threw it onto the table. Read, he said. Your mother transferred the property to me. She could not pay the expenses. I carried the burden, and she signed the land over. Fatima did not touch the paper immediately. She looked at Sani, then at Marcus, then at Blessing. Finally, she picked it up. The heading read, Deed of Assassinment. The date was the 26th of April, 2023. At the bottom was a smooth signature bearing her mother's name, Zainab Garba. Fatima stared at it. The signature was straight, confident, unbroken. Her mother had suffered a stroke on the 17th of April, 9 days earlier. Fatima remembered the video call. Zainab's right arm had lain useless beside her. She could not hold a spoon. She could not lift a cup. Yet this signature looked stronger than any signature Zainab had written in 10 years. Fatima took a photograph of the document. Sani snatched it from her hand. You have seen it, now leave my house. Fatima nodded once. I have seen it. She turned toward the door. Blessing laughed behind her. That is better. Know your level. A care worker should not come and challenge property owners. Fatima stopped at the doorway. She did not turn around. By tomorrow, she said, I will know whether you are property owners or paper owners. Then she left. At 1:12 p.m. Fatima sat in the office of Barrister Samuel Nwosu. His chambers occupied the second floor of an old commercial building near the State Secretariat. The reception area had 3 plastic chairs, a water dispenser, and shelves filled with brown legal files. Nothing about the place looked glamorous. That reassured her. Samuel entered wearing a cobalt blue suit and white shirt. He was 44, calm-faced, and careful with words. A colleague in Leeds had connected them through a Nigerian community association. Fatima placed the transfer receipts, photographs, hospital notes, and image of the deed on his desk. She spoke for 28 minutes without interruption. When she finished, Samuel did not promise victory. He did not call Sani a criminal. He did not tell her to expose the family on social media. He folded his hands. We will separate what you know from what you suspect, he said. Fatima nodded. You know you sent money. You know your mother was found in unsafe conditions. You know she denies transferring the property. You know the document carries a date 9 days after her stroke. Yes. You suspect your uncle diverted the money. You suspect the deed was forged. You suspect rent has been collected without your mother's consent. Yes, suspicion can guide an investigation. It cannot replace evidence. Fatima leaned forward. What do we do? First, preserve everything. Original photos, transfer confirmations, voice notes, messages, hospital records. Do not edit them. Do not threaten anybody. Do not post accusations online. Why not? Because anger likes speed, but justice requires sequence. He pointed to the deed image. Second, we conduct a search at the lands registry. A photocopy can lie in many ways. The registry record will tell us what was lodged, when it was lodged, and under which reference. And the money. You cannot demand your uncle's bank statement by shouting in his sitting room. We may need a court order. For now, we build from your transfers, and from any rent records we can lawfully obtain. Fatima exhaled. Samuel's tone softened. My sister, you have been caring for elderly people abroad. You already understand one important thing. A vulnerable person must not depend entirely on one gatekeeper. Fatima looked down. I trusted family. Trust is not foolishness, he said, but trust without verification can become a tool in the wrong hand. He pulled a clean sheet of paper toward him. We start today. Before Fatima left, he asked one last question. Does your uncle know you have a copy of the deed? He knows. I photographed it. Samuel looked toward the office window. Then he knows the first crack has appeared. He turned back to her. Be ready. People who benefit from silence rarely surrender quietly. The first crack widened faster than Fatima expected. On Wednesday morning, while she was helping her mother drink pap in the hospital, 3 relatives arrived without calling. They did not bring fruit. They did not ask about the wound. They brought warnings. The oldest of them sat near the foot of the bed and cleared his throat. My daughter, he began. We heard there is small misunderstanding between you and your uncle. Fatima kept the spoon in her hand. Small misunderstanding? You know how family matters are. Sometimes money enters, money goes. It is not every account that must balance like office work. Zainab turned her face toward the wall. The man continued. Sani has been trying. Nobody is perfect. You should not allow outsiders to carry family matter on their head. Which outsider? Fatima asked. We heard you went to a lawyer. That was quick. The woman beside him shifted in her chair. Fatima, court will scatter everybody. Your mother needs peace, not police and lawyers. Fatima placed the bowl on the bedside table. My mother needed food. Did anybody come? No one answered. She needed fresh medicine. Did anybody check? Silence. She slept in a store behind shops. Did family honor visit her there? The oldest man squeezed his face. Do not speak to elders anyhow. I am speaking clearly, not anyhow. You have changed abroad. Fatima looked at him for several seconds. Yes, she said. I have learned that respect is not silence in front of wrongdoing. The relatives left after 11 minutes. By noon, another message came from an aunt, then a voice note from a cousin, then a call from a community elder. Each person used different words, but the meaning was the same. Withdraw. Forgive. Do not expose. Not one of them asked to see the hospital bill. That evening, Dr. Grace reviewed Zainab's condition. The infection had not reached the bone. Her blood sugar was coming down. She would need several weeks of wound care and a structured meal plan. Fatima paid directly at the pharmacy. She wrote every amount in a notebook. Male 37,850 for antibiotics. Male 12,700 for dressing materials. 8,450 for laboratory follow-up. 21,300 for diabetes supplies. Not because she loved her mother less. Because care without records had already become a weapon. On Friday, the digital transfer history arrived from her bank. Fatima sat in room 17 of the guest house and opened the file on her laptop. 73 transactions appeared in neat rows. Dates, amounts, references. Medication for mummy. Roof, repair for mummy's room. Eye clinic, special, diet. Private nurse, she added the figures again. 18,437,500. Then she created a second column for expenses she could verify. The first physiotherapy clinic confirmed only 6 sessions, paid in cash, totaling minor 54,000. The hospital named by Sani in May 2024 had no admission record for Zainab. The eye clinic did not know her. The private nurse had never existed. By Sunday night, Fatima could verify only 691,350 in direct spending on her mother over 6 years. Less than 4%. She stared at the number until the screen blurred. Samuel called at 8:33 p.m. Do not cry over the spreadsheet, he said after hearing her voice. Save it. Print it. Let it speak later. How can people do this? By changing the meaning of the money in their own minds. They tell themselves it is compensation, then entitlement, then ownership. Fatima wiped her face. I should have checked. Yes, Samuel said. The answer surprised her. He did not rush to remove her responsibility. Then he added, and they should not have stolen. Both truths can stand together. Your lack of verification created an opening. Their choices created the harm. Fatima breathed slowly. That distinction saved her from drowning in guilt. On Monday, the 17th of March, Samuel and Fatima visited the Kwara State Lands Registry. The building was crowded. People carried files tied with string. Ceiling fans pushed warm air around offices. A printer jammed repeatedly near the public search desk. Nothing happened quickly. They submitted an application for an official search and paid the required fees. Samuel warned Fatima that the process might take days. It took 9. On the 26th of March, they returned to collect the result. The registry record showed that a deed of assignment had been lodged under reference KWSLR-4471. It purported to transfer Zainab's interest in the property to Sani. A later transaction showed that Sani had assigned the rear portion and part of the frontage to Marlow Habitat Limited for Linja 27,600,000. Fatima read the figure twice. 27 million. Samuel nodded. According to the lodged document, he told Mummy there was no money for insulin. Samuel turned another page. There is more. The deed package was incomplete. A consent page carried a stamp, but no matching entry in the day register. The identification copy attached for Zainab had expired before the alleged signing. One witness address did not exist as written, and the signature page was remarkably clean. Too clean. Samuel requested certified copies. At the records window, a woman in a pale grey blouse examined the reference number. Her name tag read Uzo Ikanem. She frowned. Who lodged this? She asked. The clerk beside her answered that the file came through an external agent. Uzo looked again at the sequence number. I retired from active desk work last year, she said, but I handled records in this district for a long time. I remember this property. Fatima stepped closer. You remember my mother's land? Uzo studied her face. Are you Zainab Garba's daughter? Yes, Ma. The woman's expression changed. Your uncle came here before the transfer, more than once. He wanted to regularize the property in his own name. I told him the widow's consent and proper documentation were required. Samuel raised one hand gently. Madam, would you be willing to give a formal statement if necessary? Uzo looked toward the corridor. I will say only what I personally saw. That is all we need. She wrote her phone number on the back of Samuel's card. Before they left, Uzo said something Fatima never forgot. Many people think an old person's weakness is permission. It is not. That afternoon, Samuel filed an application seeking preservation of the property records and disclosure of supporting documents. He also sent formal notices to Sani and Marlow Habitat Limited, informing them that the transfer was disputed. Sani received his notice at 4:16 p.m. At 4:23, he called Fatima. You have crossed the line. Fatima was sitting beside her mother in the hospital. She placed the call on speaker so Samuel, who was present, could hear. What line? She asked. You went to the registry behind me. It is a public registry. You sent lawyer's letter to people doing business with me. The land belongs to Mummy. She transferred it. She says she did not. Sani laughed. Your mother does not remember what she ate yesterday. Zainab lifted her head from the pillow. Fatima looked at Samuel. He nodded once. Zainab spoke toward the phone. Sani. I remember the day your brother brought you into our house after you lost your job. The line became quiet. I remember selling my gold chain to help you start your cement business, she continued. I remember every promise you made. Do not use my illness to erase my memory. Sani's breathing became audible. Then he said, you are confused because Fatima is poisoning your mind. Zainab's hand trembled on the blanket. Fatima ended the call. Samuel had recorded the exchange with permission from both women. It became the first time Sani openly claimed Zainab lacked mental capacity. That claim would later turn against him. 3 days later, Sani organized a family meeting at the compound. More than 30 people attended. Plastic chairs filled the courtyard. Men sat in front. Women gathered near the wall. The 2 new shops remained closed, but the SUV stood prominently beneath the carport as if it were part of Sani's argument. Zainab was still in hospital and did not attend. Fatima arrived with Samuel. Several relatives murmured when they saw the lawyer. Sani stood in the center wearing his ruby kaftan. Blessing sat beside him in emerald green, her gold earrings catching the afternoon light. Marcus occupied a chair near the back. Sani began with prayer. Then he told a story. In his version, Fatima had abandoned Nigeria for comfort. He had carried Zainab through illness. He had borrowed money, repaired the house, and sacrificed his own future. The property transfer, he said, was Zainab's grateful decision. Now this girl has returned because land value has increased, he said, pointing at Fatima. She wants to use foreign arrogance to throw me out after all my labor. Some relatives nodded. Blessing stood next. She sends small money and thinks she owns everybody, she said. Does she know how much Gary costs? Does she know diesel price? This one who cleans old people's body abroad is now forming millionaire. She entered my house with one faded bag and started inspecting rooms like estate owner. A few people laughed. Fatima felt heat climb her neck. Samuel leaned closer. Let her finish. Blessing continued. Your mother was difficult. She refused food. She insulted me. Yet I carried her. I washed her clothes. I tolerated smell. This girl did not see any of that. Fatima rose. The courtyard slowly quieted. She held no speech, only one sheet of paper. I will ask 4 questions, she said. After that, anybody who believes I am wrong can say so. She turned to Sani. First, on the 7th of May, 2024, you asked for 680,000 for a 4-day hospital admission. Which hospital? Sani folded his arms. I do not keep every detail in my head. Second, on the 29th of December, I sent 410,000 for physiotherapy and a new mattress. Where is the physiotherapy record? Blessing scoffed. Everything is record. Are we bank? Third, the deed says my mother signed on the 26th of April, 2023. 9 days earlier, she suffered a stroke that paralyzed her right hand. Who watched her sign? A murmur moved through the chairs. Sani's jaw tightened. Fatima raised her voice slightly. Fourth, if this family carried my mother on its head, why did I find her behind a row of shops, sleeping beside a bucket? Nobody laughed now. The blue umbrella woman stood near the gate. She lowered her eyes. One elder cleared his throat. Fatima, these are serious accusations. They are serious facts. Sani stepped forward. You came prepared to disgrace me. No, uncle. I came prepared because you expected me to come emotional. He pointed his walking stick at her face. You think paper makes you powerful? A person should know her level before challenging the head of a family. Fatima did not move. My mother's illness did not make you her owner. Sani raised the stick. Marcus stood abruptly. Daddy, one word. Sani turned. Marcus's face had gone pale. For a moment, Fatima thought he would speak. Instead, he sat down again. Sani lowered the stick. The meeting ended without agreement. But it did not end without consequence. By the following morning, a rumor had spread through the estate that Fatima wanted to sell the family house and carry the money back to England. Another rumor claimed she had manipulated her mother's mind. A third said she had stolen original property documents from Sani's cabinet. At 2:52 p.m., 2 police officers came to the guest house. They asked Fatima to accompany them to the station regarding a complaint of theft and unlawful entry. Fatima's heart began to pound. Samuel arrived 26 minutes later. At the station, Sani sat beside an investigating officer with the confidence of a man who believed the room belonged to him. He claimed Fatima entered his private study and stole documents worth millions. Samuel asked one question: which specific original document is missing? Sani hesitated. The land file. Your petition says she photographed a photocopy you voluntarily placed on the sitting room table. Sani looked toward the officer. Samuel continued. Do you have CCTV showing entry into a private study, a witness, an inventory of missing items? No. The officer turned to Fatima. What did you take? My own transfer records. Photographs I took at the Storehouse, hospital documents issued to my mother, and one phone image of a deed my uncle showed me. Samuel placed copies on the desk. The officer reviewed them. The room lost its drama. No arrest was made. No charge followed. But as Fatima stood to leave, Sani leaned toward her. This country is not England, he whispered. You will become tired. Fatima looked at him. Maybe, she said. But tired people can still keep records. Outside the station, Samuel allowed himself a small smile. He expected fear, he said. I was afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear. Fatima looked back at the building. What happens next? We find the people who handled the land before your uncle began rewriting its history. And somewhere in Ilorin, a retired surveyor still had a rolled paper map that Sani believed had been destroyed. Michael Bacco lived in a modest bungalow near Fate Road. He was 67, retired from land surveying, and suspicious of every person who arrived without an appointment. When Samuel called, Michael asked for the property description, the old owner's name, and the approximate year of the survey before agreeing to meet. Fatima and Samuel arrived on Thursday, the 3rd of April, at 10:11 a.m. Michael received them on a veranda crowded with potted plants. He wore reading glasses low on his nose and held Samuel's letter as if testing its weight. You said this concerns the Garber property in Adderwall, he began. Yes, sir, Samuel replied. Michael looked at Fatima. Your father was Abdul Garber? He was. I surveyed that land in 2008. After the drainage dispute, Fatima remembered the year. Her father had spent weeks arguing with a neighbor over a boundary wall and returned one afternoon, holding a rolled plan like a trophy. Michael led them into a room lined with metal cabinets. From one drawer, he removed a long cardboard tube marked AG08113. He opened it on a table. Inside was the original survey plan. The paper had yellowed at the edges, but the coordinates were clear. Michael pointed to the boundary marks: frontage, rear access, and total area. Then, Samuel placed the plan attached to Sani's deed beside it. The difference was immediate. Sani's version shifted the eastern boundary by 7 meters, and absorbed part of a passage jointly owned with the neighboring family. It also described Zainab's entire beneficial interest, as if Sani had inherited it directly from his brother. Michael removed his glasses. This is not my plan. But your seal appears here, Samuel said. My old seal, Michael replied. It was copied. Fatima looked at him. Can you prove it? Michael tapped the paper. The numbering format changed in 2016. This document claims to have been prepared in 2023, but uses my 2008 coding style. Also, I stopped practicing in 2019. Whoever produced this copied an old plan and altered the drawing. He pulled out a ledger. Each survey he had completed was listed by date and client. The Garber entry appeared on page 84, signed by Fatima's father and Zainab. Sani's name did not appear. Michael agreed to prepare a formal report. As they left, he stood beneath the veranda and called after Fatima. "Your father paid me in 3 installments," he said. "On the final day, your mother brought the balance herself. She understood every boundary. Do not let anybody describe her as a woman who never knew the land." That same afternoon, Dr. Grace gave Fatima a certified summary of Zainab's 2023 stroke treatment. The records showed admission on the 17th of April at 6:32 a.m. Clinical notes documented weakness on the right side, impaired grip, and difficulty producing a stable signature. On the 26th of April, the very day of the alleged transfer, Zainab had required assistance to hold a cup. There was another detail. A cognitive assessment conducted on the 24th of April described her as alert, oriented, and capable of understanding questions. Sani's position now had 2 problems. If Zainab was competent, her denial mattered. If she was not competent, the transaction required stronger safeguards that did not exist. Either way, the deed was in trouble. Meanwhile, Zainab's body was beginning to recover. After 19 days in hospital, she could sit in a chair for 40 minutes without exhaustion. The swelling around her foot reduced. Her appetite returned slowly. A physiotherapist taught her exercises using a soft ball and resistance band. Fatima remained beside her, but not every moment was tender. One afternoon, Zainab refused her meal and pushed the tray away. "I am tired of everybody telling me what to do," she said. Fatima's first instinct was to insist. The nurse had said she needed protein. The doctor had written a plan. The wound needed nutrition. Then Fatima stopped. For months, people had controlled her mother in the name of care. She moved the tray aside. "What would you prefer?" Zainab looked surprised. "Beans. Not this tasteless chicken." Fatima smiled. "Then we will ask whether beans can enter the plan." The next day, Dr. Grace adjusted the meal schedule. It was a small decision, but Zainab ate. Fatima began to understand that dignity was not an extra thing added after medicine. It was part of treatment. On Saturday, the 5th of April, Marcus came to the hospital at 6:47 p.m. He waited near the stairwell until Fatima stepped out of the ward. His grey shirt was damp beneath the arms. He kept checking the corridor. "You should not be here if you are going to repeat everything to your father," Fatima said. "I did not come for him." "Then why?" Marcus swallowed. "I need to tell you something." Fatima led him to an empty waiting area. He sat but did not remove his backpack. "My father used me to keep records for the shops," he began. "At first, he said it was family business. I entered rent payments into a spreadsheet. Some tenants paid cash. Some transferred to Mummy's account." "Whose account?" "My mother's business account. Blessings." Marcus nodded. "How much rent?" "For the 2 shops in the 235,000 every 3 months. Later, after they extended one shop, it became 310,000. Fatima did the calculation mentally. "What happened to the money?" "I do not know all of it. I only entered what came." "Did you know my mother was in that store?" Marcus lowered his eyes. "Yes." The answer cut deeper than Fatima expected. "You knew. I visited twice, and you left her there." "My father said she chose it because she wanted privacy." "Did it look like privacy?" Marcus's eyes reddened. "No." "Then why did you say nothing?" "He controls everything. My job came through his friend. The house is his. My mother said if I interfered, he would throw me out." Fatima leaned back. "You are 27, Marcus. I know. You were afraid." "Yes. And because you were afraid, An old woman remained behind a shop. He covered his face with both hands. Fatima did not comfort him. Some guilt should not be removed before it teaches anything. After a while, Marcus opened his backpack and brought out a flash drive. "I copied the rent spreadsheet," he said, "and some messages from the office computer. My father asked me to delete everything after your lawyer's letter came." Fatima did not take it. "Why now?" "Because I saw the hospital photograph." "Who showed you my mother?" She was laughing. "She said you were using one dirty room to make the family look wicked." His mouth tightened. I looked at Auntie Zainab's foot. I remembered she asked me for money to buy dressing gauze 2 months ago. I told her I had none. That same evening, I entered a rent payment of 310,000. He pushed the flash drive across the seat. "I cannot continue." Fatima finally picked it up. "Will you make a statement?" Marcus looked toward the corridor. "Not yet. Then this may not be enough. I know. Truth is not a place where you hide only when it is convenient." He looked at her. The words landed. "I need time," he whispered. Fatima stood. "My mother needed time too. They used hers against her." She walked back into the ward. That night, Samuel examined the flash drive on a separate computer. He created copies and documented when it was received. The spreadsheet covered 31 months. Rent payments totaled 4,785,000. The messages were worse. In one exchange, Blessing wrote to Sani, "The old woman asked about rent again." Sani replied, "Tell her Fatima used it for hospital." Another message, dated the 12th of November 2024, read, "Aunt she leaves that compound. Nobody will ask wones what." Blessing answered with a laughing emoji. Then came a reference to the thumb page. Fatima read the message 3 times. "What is the thumb page?" she asked. Samuel's face was grave. "We do not guess, we find the document." The following week, Samuel applied for interim protection of Zainab's interest and requested orders restraining further sale, demolition, or alteration pending determination. Marlowe Habitat Limited responded through its lawyers. The company claimed it had purchased in good faith. It said Sani provided registered documents and vacant possession assurances. It also disclosed something Sani had hidden. A demolition and redevelopment clause allowed the company to take possession once the final balance was paid. The final payment deadline was the 30th of April. Fatima stared at the letter. "They plan to demolish the house?" "Part of it," Samuel said. "Possibly more, depending on the development plan. My father built that house. I know. What if the court does not act in time? We have filed urgently. But urgency does not guarantee speed." Fatima wanted to scream. Instead, she returned to the hospital and asked her mother a question. "Mummy, do you want to keep the house?" Zainab looked toward the window. "I want the right to decide, not the building." The right. That became the center of the case. On the 12th of April, Zainab was discharged into Fatima's care. They rented a 2-bedroom apartment near the hospital for 6 months. The landlord insisted on advance payment. Fatima paid my 1,350,000 from her savings and kept the receipt. The apartment was small but clean. It had a ramp at the entrance, a bathroom wide enough for assistance, and windows that allowed morning light into Zainab's room. On the first evening, Fatima placed her mother's phone on the bedside table. A new SIM, a charger, no password controlled by another person. Zainab touched the phone as though it were something alive. "Call anybody you want," Fatima said. Her mother looked at her. "What if they insult me? You can end the call." Zainab smiled faintly. That freedom was new. 3 days later, Sani came to the apartment. He arrived alone at 8:20 p.m. after the physiotherapist had left. He did not enter until Fatima opened the door. "I came to settle this matter, Sna," he said. Fatima kept the security chain fastened. Settle how? Let me enter. No. His face tightened. You will keep your uncle outside. You kept my mother behind shops. He looked down the corridor, embarrassed that a neighbor might hear. Then he lowered his voice. I can return some money. How much? 3 million now. Another 2 million later. The property. I will buy your mother a bungalow outside town. The property? Fatima repeated. Sani exhaled sharply. That transaction has gone far. People have invested. We cannot turn back everything because an old woman is confused. From inside the apartment, Zainab's voice came clearly. I am not confused. Sani froze. The door opened wider, but the chain remained. Zainab stood behind Fatima with her walking frame. She wore a clean sky-blue dress and a mustard-yellow scarf. Her right foot was bandaged properly. Sani stared at her. For a moment, he looked almost ashamed. Then entitlement returned to his face. You should be resting. I rested while you sold my land. I used the money for family. Which family? You were sick. You did not understand the expenses. Zainab stepped closer. I understood when you removed my phone. Sani looked at Fatima. You have filled her head. No, Zainab said. You emptied my room. The corridor became silent. Sani reached into his pocket and removed a folded paper. Withdraw the case, he said. I will sign an agreement. 1 bungalow, 1 shop. 5 million over time. Everybody moves on. Fatima looked at her mother. It was more money than she had expected him to offer. Zainab was tired. Legal proceedings could last months. The property could remain tied up. The family would continue attacking them. For one dangerous second, Fatima imagined peace, a small bungalow, no court, no public shame. Then Zainab spoke. A small house bought with silence will still have a stolen foundation. Sani's hand fell. Mama, be reasonable. I was reasonable when I fed you after your brother died. He was my brother, and I was his wife. That did not make my life yours. Sani's eyes hardened. You will regret this. Fatima closed the door. Through the wood she heard him say, before the end of this month, that house will no longer exist. His footsteps moved away. Zainab remained standing for several seconds. Then her knees weakened. Fatima helped her to the sofa. Mummy, are you all right? No, Zainab said honestly. She looked toward the closed door. But I am no longer silent. At 9:03 p.m., Fatima called Samuel. The lawyer listened without interrupting. Then he said, tomorrow morning, we file a supplementary affidavit. And from tonight, neither of you moves alone. The first crack had become an open fight. Now Sani had a deadline. And desperate people become most dangerous when the calendar begins to close around them. For the next 12 days, the case moved on 2 tracks. One track was visible. Letters, applications, certified records, meetings with lawyers, hospital appointments, physiotherapy sessions, security arrangements. The other track moved through whispers. A neighbor called Fatima to say men had entered the compound at night and measured the frontage. A tenant received notice to vacate. The gateman was dismissed and replaced. Blessing told relatives that Zainab had already accepted a settlement, but Fatima was refusing because she wanted the entire property for herself. Then, on Sunday evening, Marcus sent a message from an unknown number. Daddy said Makines will come tomorrow morning. Fatima called Samuel immediately. He was already at his desk. The court had granted an interim order that Friday, but the enrolled copy had not yet reached all parties. Samuel had arranged for a court officer to serve it first thing Monday morning. What time? Fatima asked. By 8. Marcus says machines are coming before then. Samuel paused. Do not go there alone. That is my mother's home. And your uncle is expecting confrontation. Fatima looked across the room at Zainab, who sat folding a blue scarf slowly with her left hand. What do we do? We go with the officer. We document everything. We do not touch anybody. We do not block a machine with our bodies. If they begin before service, the evidence will speak. Fatima hated the calmness of legal procedure, but she had learned why it mattered. At 6:51 the next morning, they left the apartment. Zainab insisted on coming. Fatima argued for 11 minutes. Samuel advised against it. Dr. Grace had warned that stress could raise her blood pressure. Yet Zainab stood in the hallway, wearing her faded yellow wrapper over a simple blouse, a small medicine bag hanging from her wrist. "They removed me when I was weak," she said. "I will be there when they try again." Fatima could not take that choice away from her. They arrived at Adderwall Estate at 7:36 a.m. The bulldozer was already inside the compound. A yellow blade faced the side structure. 2 workers stood near the wall with sledgehammers. Neighbors crowded outside the gate. Sani occupied the center of the courtyard in his ruby kaftan and green cap, holding the deed high enough for everyone to see. Blessing stood near the veranda in emerald green. Marx was beside the gate, pale and motionless. A representative of Marlowe Habitat Limited argued with Sani near the machine. The company had apparently expected vacant possession, not a family crowd and a woman claiming ownership. When Zainab entered, the murmuring stopped. Sani turned. His face showed surprise for half a second. Then he pointed toward the gate. "Move this old woman before I count 3. The bulldozer engine roared behind him. Mama Zainab stood at the gate, clutching her small bag of medicine, her faded yellow wrapper dragging in the dust. "This house is no longer yours," Sani shouted, waving the deed before the neighbors. "You signed it. Stop behaving like a mad woman and leave." Zainab's lips trembled. The driver lowered the blade. "Stop that machine." Every head turned. Fatima stepped from the taxi in her burnt orange dress. Samuel followed in his cobalt suit, carrying a sealed brown envelope. Beside him was a court officer wearing an official identification card. Fatima walked straight towards Sani. No shouting, no begging. She raised the certified hospital record. "Uncle," she said, dangerously calm. "How did my mother sign this deed 9 days after a stroke paralyzed her writing hand?" The compound went silent. Even the machine driver looked over his shoulder. Sani laughed, but the sound was dry. "You came with hospital paper to stop development?" "No," Samuel said. "We came with a court order." The officer opened the envelope and identified Sani by name. He served the order restraining demolition, further transfer, construction, or interference with Zainab's claimed possession pending the hearing. Sani refused to take the document. The officer placed it at his feet and noted the refusal. Blessing shouted, "This is fake!" Samuel held up the enrolled copy. "You may verify the suit number through your lawyer." Sani turned to the company representative. "Continue. I own this place." The representative stepped back. "We will not continue against an order. You already paid. That is a separate matter." Sani moved toward the bulldozer and struck the side with his palm. "Start." The driver switched off the engine. The sudden silence felt louder than the roar. Sani spun toward him. "What are you doing?" The driver climbed down. "Ogre, court matter is not my own." A few neighbors laughed nervously. Sani's face darkened. He pointed at Zainab. "This woman transferred the property. She cannot come here because her daughter has brought one roadside lawyer." Samuel did not react to the insult. Fatima opened the certified medical report. "The deed says she signed on the 26th of April, 2023, she said. "The hospital record says that day she could not grip a cup with her writing hand." Sani shouted, "She used her left hand." The words left his mouth before he could stop them. A murmur passed through the crowd. Fatima looked at the signature page. "This is a written signature, not a thumbprint." Sani's eyes flicked toward Blessing. Marcus saw it. So did Fatima. Blessing stepped forward. "Why are all of you standing there? This girl is lying. Her mother signed. We were there." "Who witnessed it?" Samuel asked. Blessing opened her mouth. No answer came. Then Marcus moved away from the gate. His father saw him. "Where are you going?" Marcus stopped in the center of the courtyard. His hands were shaking. He looked at Zainab. The old woman's face held no anger, only exhaustion. Marcus turned toward the neighbors. "She did not sign it," he said. "The words were not loud. They traveled anyway." Sani stared at him. "What did you say?" Marcus swallowed. "Auntie Zainab did not sign that deed." Blessing rushed forward. "Shut your mouth!" Marcus stepped back. "I saw the papers." Sani raised the walking stick. Samuel moved between them. The court officer warned Sani not to threaten a potential witness. Sani's arm remained in the air. For 3 seconds, nobody breathed properly. Then he lowered the stick. Marcus continued, voice breaking. "My mother pressed Auntie Zainab's thumb on one paper. They said it was insurance. Later, I saw the page attached to another file. The signature page came from somewhere else. My father told me not to ask questions." Blessing screamed. "You useless boy! After everything we did for you." Marcus turned to her. "What did you do for Auntie Zainab?" The question struck harder than a slap. Blessing stopped. Zainab gripped her walking frame. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not lower her head. Sani looked around the compound as if searching for someone who still accepted his authority. The elders who had supported him were not there. The neighbors avoided his gaze. The company representative was already making a phone call. The balance had shifted. Not completely, but publicly. Sani pointed at Marcus. "Leave my house." Marcus nodded. "I will. You have no job, no car, nothing." Marcus's face crumpled, but he stood his ground. "Then I will start with nothing." Sani laughed bitterly. "Because of this woman?" Marcus looked at Zainab. "No, because of what we did to her." He walked through the gate with his backpack. The crowd opened for him. The bulldozer remained still. The court officer completed the service notes. Samuel advised the company representative to preserve all transaction documents and communications. Fatima photographed the machine, the workers, and the unbroken structures. She did not photograph people's faces unnecessarily. Then she went to her mother. "Mummy, let us leave." Zainab looked at the house, the cream walls, the new windows, the veranda where she had once sat beside her husband. She shook her head. Not yet. With careful steps, she crossed the compound and entered the main house. Blessing tried to block the doorway. The officer reminded her of the order. Zainab walked into the second lounge that had replaced her bedroom. The television was on. A music video flashed across the screen. She stood beside the wine-colored recliner and touched the wall where her bed had been. Nobody spoke. Then she saw her old wooden prayer stand in a corner, used to hold magazines. She picked it up with her left hand. "This belongs to me," she said. Blessing started to protest. Sani stopped her. Zainab carried the prayer stand outside. That was all she took. Not the television. Not the sofa. Not the generator purchased with diverted money. One small wooden stand. On the way back to the apartment, Fatima asked why. Her mother rested the wood across her knees. "Because they touched everything else with greed," she said. "This one still reminds me who I was before fear entered that house." The interim order bought time. It did not decide ownership. Over the next 4 months, both sides filed documents, objections, and witness statements. Marlowe Habitat Limited joined the proceedings to protect its financial interest. Its lawyers argued that the company had relied on registered records and paid substantial money. Samuel did not accuse the company of joining Sani's fraud without evidence. Instead, He argued that the title presented to it was defective and that the company's remedy lay against the seller. The distinction mattered. A realistic case was not a story where every person on the other side was evil. Some were careless, some were misled, some benefited. The court would have to separate them. Marcus moved into a single room near his workplace. 3 days later, his employment was terminated. The letter cited restructuring, but the timing was obvious. His father's friend owned the company. For 2 weeks, Marcus did not contact Fatima. Then he went to Samuel's chambers and signed a statement. He admitted maintaining the rent spreadsheet. He identified the computer from which messages had been copied. He explained the thumb page. He disclosed the name of an external document agent who had visited Sani twice. Samuel warned him, "You are not protected from every consequence because you decided to tell the truth late." Marcus nodded. "I understand. You may be cross-examined. Your father's lawyer will say you are bitter because he threw you out." "I am bitter," Marcus said, "but the records are still true." That was the first mature thing Fatima heard him say. The external agent was questioned through formal process. He denied forging anything, but he admitted receiving old survey documents and identification copies from Sani. He also admitted that Blessing delivered a thumb-printed page separately. Mrs. Uzo Ekonem provided her statement about Sani's earlier attempts to change the ownership record. Michael Barco submitted his report on the altered survey plan. Dr. Grace certified the medical timeline. The tenants produced payment confirmations to Blessing's business account. Then the bank disclosure order arrived. It did not open every part of Sani's life. It required specific records connected to the disputed funds and property transaction. The entries showed that within 72 hours of receiving Blovoster 21,000 from Marlow Habitat Limited, Sani transferred Blessing's 6,800,000 to Blessing's business account, paid Blovoster 5,350,000 toward the SUV, and sent Wood 2,900,000 as a deposit for a flat in Abuja. Only plus 240,000 went towards Zainab's medical expenses that month. Samuel spread the records across his conference table. Fatima stared at them. "He told me her insulin was too expensive." Samuel pointed to the evidence. "Then let the court hear him explain the priority." The case was fixed for hearing in September. By then, Zainab could walk short distances with a frame. Her foot had healed. Her blood sugar was stable. She chose her meals with the dietitian. She kept her own phone. She approved payments from an account in her name. Each improvement was a victory. Yet every court notice brought back fear. One night, Fatima found her mother sitting in the dark. "What is wrong?" Zainab held the notice of hearing. "They will call me confused in front of everybody." Fatima sat beside her. "They may try. What if my words do not come well? Then take your time. What if I forget a date?" "You are allowed to forget a date. That does not mean you forgot your life." Zainab looked at her daughter. For years, family authority had taught her that any weakness could cancel her voice. Now Fatima gave the weakness room without surrendering the voice. Zainab folded the hearing notice. "I will testify," she said, and when September came, Sani discovered that the woman he had described as too confused to own land remembered exactly how he had learned to lie. The hearing began on Tuesday, the 16th of September, 2025. Rain had fallen before dawn, leaving the courthouse steps dark and slick. By 8:15 a.m., the corridor outside the courtroom was already crowded with lawyers, clerks, families, and people holding files against their chests. Fatima arrived with Zainab and Samuel. She wore a burnt orange blazer over a white blouse and navy trousers. Zainab wore mustard yellow with a pale blue scarf. Samuel's cobalt suit stood out against the brown doors and grey walls. Across the corridor, Sani sat in a dark green suit with a ruby tie. Blessing wore emerald fabric and gold jewelry, though the confidence she once carried had thinned. Marcus stood alone near a window in a light blue shirt. No one greeted anyone. When the case was called, the parties entered. The courtroom was not large. Ceiling fans turned above wooden benches. A clerk arranged files. The judge entered, and everyone rose. Samuel began with the simplest point. Ownership did not disappear because a widow became sick. He presented the original title documents, the 2008 survey record, and evidence showing Zainab's beneficial interest after her husband's death. He did not ask the court to punish Sani for being unpleasant. He asked the court to examine whether a valid transfer had occurred. Sani's lawyer argued that Zainab willingly assigned the property in exchange for care, debt settlement, and family support. He described Sani as the person who had maintained the house while Fatima lived abroad. The judge asked, "Where is the written calculation of the alleged debt?" The lawyer said family expenses were not always recorded formally. The judge wrote something down. The first witness was Michael Bako. He identified his original survey plan and ledger. Under questioning, he explained the boundary alterations and the copied seal. Sani's lawyer suggested that age had affected his memory. Michael adjusted his glasses. "My memory is not the only evidence," he said. The ledger was written in 2008. The coordinates can be checked today. Land does not change shape because I became old. A few people on the back bench shifted to hide smiles. The lawyer pressed him. "Can you say who altered the document?" "No, so you cannot accuse my client." "I did not accuse him of drawing it. I said the plan attached to his transaction is not the plan I produced." The answer was precise. It held. Mrs. Uzo Ekonem testified next. She described Sani's earlier visits to the registry and his attempt to regularize the property in his own name. She explained the missing day register entry and inconsistent reference sequence. Sani's lawyer asked whether administrative mistakes occurred at the registry. "They do," Uzo replied. "So the missing entry may be a mistake? It may be." The lawyer smiled. Then Uzo continued. "But a missing entry, an expired identification copy, an unmatched witness address, and a consent stamp without corresponding processing are not one mistake. They are a pattern requiring explanation." The smile disappeared. On the third hearing day, Dr. Grace took the stand. She brought certified records from April 2023. She explained the stroke, the right-sided weakness, and the grip impairment. Sani's lawyer asked, "Doctor, was Mama Zainab unconscious on the 26th of April?" "No." "Was she unable to understand conversation?" "No." "Then she was capable of agreeing to a transaction." Dr. Grace remained calm. Understanding a conversation and physically producing the signature shown are different questions. Could she have signed with her left hand? She could attempt marks with assistance. The clinical notes do not support a smooth, staceable signature of this kind. The lawyer held up the deed. "You are not a handwriting expert." "Nobo. So your opinion on the signature is limited." "Yes, my medical evidence concerns her physical condition." Samuel then asked one question. "Doctor, was Mama Zainab mentally alert enough on that date to remember whether she agreed to give away her home?" "Yes," Dr. Grace answered. "The records describe her as alert and oriented." The contradiction tightened around Sani. He had called Zainab too confused to deny the deed. His own defense now needed her mentally capable enough to approve it. Both claims could not carry equal weight. The tenants testified about rent. One produced 12 transfer confirmations. Another described paying cash to Blessing and receiving handwritten receipts. The amounts matched Marcus's spreadsheet. Then the bank records were admitted. The courtroom became very quiet as Samuel traced them funny. Mind a 21 million thousand received from Marlow Habitat Limited. 6,800 transferred to Blessing's business. One a 5,350,000 paid toward the SUV. One a 2,900,000 deposited for an Abuja flat. 240,000 paid toward Zainab's health needs. Samuel did not raise his voice. "Madam Blessing," he asked when she entered the witness box, "why did money from property said to be transferred for medical debt move into your business account?" Blessing folded her hands. "My husband handles finances. Did you receive 6,800,000? Yes, but it was family money. Did Mama Zainab own your business? No. Did she approve the transfer? My husband said she did. Do you have her written approval? No." Samuel showed her the message about removing Zainab from the compound. "Once she leaves that compound, nobody will ask wones." "What? Did you write this?" Blessing stared at the screen printout. "I do not remember." "Is that your number?" "Yes." "Is that your account profile?" "Yes." "Did you send the message?" "I said I do not remember." Samuel placed another message beside it. "The thumb page is ready." "What is the thumb page?" Blessing looked towards Sunny. The judge noticed. "Answer the question," the judge said. Blessing's voice became smaller. It was an insurance form. "Why did you send your husband a message saying the thumb page was ready?" "Because he asked me to help Mama press her thumb." "Where is that insurance form?" "I do not know." "Was it attached to the deed?" "No." "Are you sure?" Blessing hesitated. Her lawyer objected to the repetition. The judge allowed Samuel to proceed. Samuel displayed the certified deed package. The final page carried a thumb impression beside a witness line. The preceding page carried the smooth signature. "Is this Mama Zainab's thumb impression?" Blessing's lips moved without sound. "Madam?" "Yes." "How do you know?" "I was there when she pressed it." A held breath passed through the courtroom. Samuel stepped closer to the lectern. "You told this court that she signed the transfer willingly. Now you admit you personally pressed her thumb onto a page whose full contents, she says, were hidden from her." Blessing's eyes widened. "I did not press it. I guided her hand." "For insurance?" "Yes. Yet it appears in a property deed. I do not know how." Samuel stopped. He did not need to say more. The silence said it for him. When Sani testified, he entered with the old confidence forced back onto his shoulders. He said his brother had asked him to protect the property. He said Zainab agreed to compensate him for years of sacrifice. He said the money from the sale went into family development that would benefit everyone. Samuel asked him to define everyone. Sani frowned. "My household, the extended family." "Did that include Mama Zainab?" "Of course." "Why was she living in a storehouse without a toilet?" "She preferred privacy." "Why was her medicine expired?" "She refused treatment." "Why did you request 680,000 from Fatima for an admission that never occurred?" "I may have confused the hospital name." "Why did you request 410,000 for physiotherapy when the clinic recorded only 54,000 in sessions?" "There were other expenses." "Receipts?" "Not every family keeps receipts." Samuel nodded. Then he showed the SUV payment. "Did you keep a receipt for this?" Sani's face hardened. "Yes." "The Abuja flat deposit?" "Yes." "Blessing's business transfer?" "Yes." "So records were available for spending that benefited you, but not for spending said to benefit Mama Zainab." Sani leaned toward the microphone. "You are twisting family reality into mathematics." Samuel's response was immediate. "Money becomes mathematics the moment you ask someone to send it." The judge looked up. Sani's lawyer objected to argument. The judge sustained the objection but the words had already entered the room. Samuel changed direction. You told police that Fatima stole original documents from your study. Yes. Which originals? The land documents. Yet you later produced those same originals through your lawyer. Sani paused. They were returned. By whom? I cannot remember. Did you withdraw the theft complaint? No. Why not? Sani's jaw moved. Samuel waited. The judge waited. The entire room waited. Finally, Sani said, she entered my house without respect. There it was. The complaint had never been about stolen papers. It had been punishment for disobedience. Marcus testified on the 7th hearing day. He walked to the witness box without looking at his parents. His voice shook at first. He admitted copying records. He admitted keeping quiet. He admitted helping enter rent payments while knowing the money did not reach Zainab. Sani's lawyer attacked his motives. Your father removed you from the house, correct? Yes. You lost your job after this dispute? Yes. You are angry with him? Yes. So you want revenge. Marcus lifted his head. I wanted revenge for some days, he said. Then I understood that revenge was not needed. The spreadsheet existed before he threw me out. The messages existed before I lost my job. My anger did not create them. The lawyer paced. You expect the court to trust a son who betrays his father? Marcus's hands tightened on the rail. I betrayed Auntie Zainab first. I am here because I do not want silence to continue the betrayal. At the backup courtroom, Zainab lowered her eyes. She did not smile. She did not forgive him in that moment, but she listened. Finally, Zainab testified. The courtroom clerk brought a chair because she could not stand for long. She sat with her walking frame beside her and her pale blue scarf resting over one shoulder. Samuel asked her to state her name. Zainab Garba. Do you know the property in dispute? I lived there with my husband for 26 years. Did you agree to transfer it to Sani? No. Did you sign the deed dated the 26th of April, 2023? No. Did you place your thumb on any paper? Yes, Blessing said it was for health insurance. Were the pages read to you? No. Did anyone advise you independently? No. Did you receive proceeds from the sale? No, Pa Samuel asked about the storehouse. Zainab described the mattress, the bucket, the leaking roof, and the fear that Sani would stop her medicine if she called Fatima. Her voice cracked only once. Then Sani's lawyer stood. He was courteous at first. Mama Zainab, you had a stroke. Yes. Your memory has not always been perfect since then. My memory was never perfect before it. A quiet ripple moved through the courtroom. The lawyer continued. You sometimes forget dates? Yes. You sometimes become confused? Sometimes. Then is it possible you agreed to transfer the property and later forgot? Zainab looked at him. Do you forget your own house? The lawyer paused. He tried again. Madam, please answer only the question. I am answering. I forget where I put my glasses. I forget whether I took tea at 7 or 8. I did not forget giving away the roof over my head because I never gave it. Sani shifted in his seat. The lawyer held up the deed. This bears your name. My name can be written by another hand. It bears your thumbprint. My thumb belongs to me. The lie placed around it does not. The judge looked directly at her. Zainab continued before anyone could stop her. They used my sickness as if it cancelled me. They thought because my hand became weak, my rights also became weak. They thought because my daughter was far, nobody would ask me what I wanted. Her eyes moved towards Sani. I remember what I wanted. The room was still. I wanted food. I wanted my medicine. I wanted my phone. I wanted to sleep in my own room. Nobody asked. Sani looked down. The hearing closed in November after final written arguments. Judgment was fixed for the 22nd of January, 2026. For 68 days, the property remained frozen by order. No demolition. No sale. No new tenant. No transfer. Fatima returned to Leeds briefly to preserve her job. She arranged licensed home support, direct pharmacy payment, and daily video calls. Two trusted people received monthly care summaries. Zainab retained control of her own account and approved every major expense. The system was not built from suspicion alone. It was built from shared responsibility. When Fatima returned to Ilorin in January, her mother met her at the apartment door, without the walking frame. She still needed it for longer distances, but she wanted to stand for the greeting. On Judgment morning, the courthouse corridor was fuller than before. Relatives who once advised silence had come. Neighbors had come. The blue umbrella Pap's seller stood at the back, wearing her best dress. Sani arrived without the ruby kaftan. He wore grey. For the first time, he looked like an ordinary man waiting for another person to decide whether his story could survive the evidence. When the judge entered, everyone rose. The judgment took 1 hour and 23 minutes to read. The court began with what the case was not. It was not a contest over who loved the family more. It was not a punishment for Fatima living abroad. It was not an invitation for the court to manage every disagreement between relatives. It was a question of title, consent, accountability, and the protection of a vulnerable owner whose illness had been used to weaken her voice. The court found that the alleged transfer could not stand. The deed contained serious irregularities. The medical evidence made the smooth signature doubtful. The thumb impression had been obtained without proof that the document was explained. The registry trail was defective. The altered survey plan was unreliable. The financial records contradicted Sani's claim that the transaction existed mainly to cover Zainab's care. The judge paused before reading the central order. The deed of assignment was declared invalid. Zainab's property interest was restored. A permanent injunction restrained Sani and Blessing from selling, demolishing, mortgaging, or interfering with the land without Zainab's lawful consent. They were ordered to account for all rent collected from the two shops and to repay proven diverted funds, subject to an assessment of the final amount. The registry was directed to correct the disputed entries. The evidence relating to falsified documents and misappropriation was referred to the appropriate investigative authorities for separate consideration. Marlowe Habitat Limited's claim against the property failed because Sani could not transfer an interest he did not lawfully hold. The company retained the right to pursue recovery against those who presented the defective title. The company had not won the land. But the court did not call it part of the fraud without sufficient evidence. That distinction remained. Then the judge spoke beyond the technical orders. Age and illness do not convert a human being into family property, the judge said. Assistance is not ownership. A relative entrusted with access to money, documents, and communication carries a duty of honesty, not a license to replace the vulnerable person's will with his own. Fatima closed her eyes. Beside her, Zainab's left hand rested on the wooden prayer stand she had brought from the house. Her fingers tightened around its edge. Samuel leaned closer. "It is done," he whispered, but Zainab shook her head gently. "No," she said. "It has started." Across the aisle, Blessing covered her face. Sani remained still. He did not collapse. He did not shout. The consequences were too real for theater. The SUV would have to be sold. The rent would have to be accounted for. The Abuja flat deposit was now under dispute. The criminal investigation would continue separately. The authority he had carried in the estate had cracked in public, and there was nowhere left to hide the mathematics. Outside the courthouse, reporters and curious residents crowded near the steps. Fatima tried to guide her mother toward the car, but one reporter called out, "Mama Zainab, how do you feel now that your property has been returned?" Zainab stopped. Sani was leaving through another door when he heard the question. He slowed. Zainab turned toward the small cluster of microphones. Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. "My illness affected my hand," she said. "It did not cancel my humanity." The courtyard went quiet. She continued, "Do not wait until an old person wins in court before you respect them. Respect them when their voice is slow. Respect them when they repeat themselves. Respect them when helping them is inconvenient." Fatima felt tears rise. Zainab looked straight ahead. A person does not lose ownership of her life because she needs help to stand. Then she walked to the car. By evening, the statement had traveled through community groups across Ilorin. People who had ignored Zainab called to congratulate her. Relatives sent apologies. Some claimed they had always suspected Sani. Others said they had been misled. Zainab listened to 3 calls. Then she switched off the phone. "Today, I want quiet," she said. Fatima respected it. The court returned the legal right quickly. Repairing the harm took longer. An independent accountant reviewed the transfers, rent records, and property proceeds over 4 months. The final civil assessment found that Sani and Blessing owed Zainab Laya 16,982,750, excluding sums that could not be traced with enough certainty. They could not pay it at once. The SUV was sold. Blessing closed her shop after the business account was restricted under lawful enforcement proceedings. The Abuja flat transaction collapsed, and part of the deposit was recovered. A repayment schedule was approved for the remaining amount. Sani moved out of the family house. The Residents' Association removed him from his position as chairman. Men who once waited for him to speak began making decisions without him. At meetings, he sat at the side. The world did not end. It simply stopped bending around him. The criminal investigation moved more slowly. Fatima learned not to confuse referral with conviction. Documents had to be examined. Statements had to be taken. The external agent had to answer questions. The process belonged to the authorities, not to family anger. Samuel reminded her often, "Do not announce outcomes that have not happened," he said. Truth does not need decoration. Marcus found work 3 months later at a small accounting office. The salary was lower. He took buses. He rented 1 room and cooked for himself. One Sunday afternoon, he came to Zainab's apartment carrying a bag of oranges and a written apology. He stood near the door. "I knew enough to speak," he said. "I did not speak. I am sorry." Zainab read the letter slowly. Marcus waited for forgiveness. It did not come. "An apology is the first brick," she told him. "It is not the whole house." His eyes dropped. "What should I do?" "Do not ask me to design your goodness for you." The words hurt him. They were supposed to. Marcus continued visiting. He did not demand closeness. He helped the accountant locate missing rent entries. He volunteered information during the investigation. When Zainab needed transport for a registry appointment, he arranged it and left after she arrived safely. Months passed. One afternoon, she allowed him to sit and drink tea. That was not complete forgiveness. It was a door unlocked once. Blessing sent messages through relatives asking Zainab to withdraw every complaint. She blamed Sani. Then she blamed Marcus. Then the external agent. She described herself as a wife who only followed instructions. Zainab answered through Samuel. Following wrongdoing is still movement. Sani came once. He stood outside the apartment in plain clothes, thinner than before. Fatima opened the door but did not invite him in. "I want to speak to Mama," he said. Zainab came to the hallway. For a long moment, brother-in-law and widow looked at each other. Sani's eyes moved toward the floor. I made mistakes, he said. Zainab waited. I thought I deserved something after managing the family. You deserved honesty. I was angry that Fatima sent money through me and still asked questions. She did not ask enough questions. Sani nodded. The admission was not yet remorse. It was the beginning of seeing himself without the costume of authority. I am sorry, he said. Zainab's face remained calm. I hear you. Do you forgive me? I am learning how to live without fear. Do not rush me so you can feel clean. Sani closed his eyes. Then he left. 2 weeks after the judgment, Fatima took her mother back to the house. The court orders had been registered. The locks had been changed under Samuel's supervision. An inventory documented the rooms and items. Nothing was removed in secret. Zainab entered the lounge that had replaced her bedroom. Sunlight fell across the cream sofa. The large television was dark. Dust had gathered along the edge of the wine-colored recliner. She walked to the wall and touched it. This was where my bed stood, she said. Fatima waited. We can return it, she said. We can remove this furniture. Rebuild the wall. Make your room again. Zainab looked around. The court returned the building, she said. It cannot return the nights I was afraid inside it. Then what do you want? Zainab walked to the window. Outside, the two shops faced the street. Traders moved past. A woman balanced bread on her head. A tricycle horn sounded at the junction. I want the place to do something useful, she said. That decision changed the final meaning of the property. One shop remained rented, creating steady income for Zainab's care. Every payment entered her account directly. A monthly statement went to her, Fatima, and an independent accountant. The second shop became a small advice center called The Open Door. Once each month, Samuel or another volunteer lawyer explained basic property rights to widows, older people, and families. Dr. Grace organized health talks on elder neglect, medication safety, and signs of financial abuse. Yuzo spoke about verifying land records. Michael displayed copies of survey plans and taught residents why old documents should be preserved. The center did not promise free miracles. It taught practical habits. Never sign a blank page. Do not surrender original documents to one person. Ask what a thumbprint will be attached to. Pay medical providers directly when possible. Keep receipts. Speak privately with the person receiving care. Do not allow one relative to control the phone, money, medicine, and documents at the same time. Most importantly, ask the older person what they want. The first session drew 23 people. The second drew 41. At the third, a widow brought a file she had been afraid to open for 7 years. Zainab sat near the front in mustard yellow and pale blue. She was not introduced as a helpless victim. She welcomed guests as the owner of the building. Fatima watched at her and understood something she had missed for years. Sending money had been love. But love also required presence, verification, and respect for choice. She did not resign from her job and sacrifice her future out of guilt. That would have turned care into another form of control. Instead, she created a system. A trained support worker visited Zainab on agreed days. Pharmacy payments were direct. Medical appointments appeared on a shared calendar. Fatima called her mother privately every evening, not through a gatekeeper. She returned to Nigeria at planned intervals, and sometimes Zainab refused advice. Fatima learned to let her. One Saturday, her mother decided to attend a market event despite the heat. Fatima worried about her blood pressure and argued for 10 minutes. Zainab listened. Then she said, "My daughter, care for me. Do not become my new Sani." Fatima went silent. Then both women laughed. They attended the event for 1 hour and left before the afternoon heat became harsh. That was care with dignity. Not abandonment, not control. 11 months after Fatima first opened the storehouse door, mother and daughter sat on the veranda of their smaller home near the hospital. Zainab preferred that house. It held no memories of fear. A pot of basil grew beside the steps. Her phone rested near her hand. The wooden prayer stand stood inside by the window. The evening call to prayer moved across Eilerin. Fatima poured tea. "Mummy, do you miss the old house?" Zainab considered the question. "I miss who I was before people decided weakness made me small." Fatima placed the cup beside her. "And now?" Zainab smiled. "Now I know small voice can still carry far." They sat without speaking. No court could return every lost night. No repayment could erase the storehouse. No apology could immediately rebuild trust. But the truth had done something revenge could not do. It returned choice. From my own point of view, the most painful thing stolen from Mama Zainab was not the land or the money. It was the right to be heard inside her own family. Property can be restored by a court. Money can be repaid slowly. But dignity survives only when ordinary people decide not to look away. This story reminds us to check on the elderly people we love. Speak to them directly. Ask what they need. Verify the care being provided. Never confuse family authority with ownership over another human being. Because respect is not what we offer people after they prove they are strong. Respect is what we owe them when the world believes they are too weak to fight back.